meeting of the Westminster Select Board. I will call it to order at this time. Adjustments to the agenda.
We have two. We'd like to add John Jones to boards and commissions. He'd like to speak to you about
I just want to give a brief update.
Wyndham Regional
Yeah,
Commission.
once we started, I attended a couple of meetings. I just want to forecast a couple of things for the select board and management.
And we have a request from our town clerk about a contractual matter.
Okay. Any other adjustments to the agenda? Comments from the public? Okay, thank you. Moving on. Acceptance of minutes, June 23rd.
I'll approve the minutes as written.
Second that?
Motion to approve the minutes of June 23rd, 2021 has been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? None. Minutes are adopted for June 23rd. Also, we'll move to July 8th, 2021 minutes.
I'll move that we approve the minutes as printed.
Motion has been moved to approve the minutes for July 28th, 2021. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Sorry?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Who is that?
Nate Stoddard.
Hi, Nate. Go ahead, shoot.
So I don't know if this is a question prudent to your minutes agenda now or other business or what. It's minutes related. What is your preference? I do.
Shoot.
Okay, so look back on a few meetings that I'd missed, watched some meetings on Fact TV, read some minutes. I'm confused and I couldn't pull them up right now. It was whatever the meeting was when the original backhoe purchase motion was made. I believe Craig made a motion to purchase it for $93,150. The minutes reflect $93,500. So that speaks to my further question about minutes in general. The minutes of June 23rd, and I understand minutes, trust me. They're to reflect the basic gist of the conversation. But the minutes of the 23rd didn't reflect or mention conversations had by a few speakers from the audience. There was one gentleman that was speaking on behalf of the road crew. No mention of who he was. There's no mention of the other options that were discussed. There's no mention of Craig's preferences that he strongly posed in conversation in the minutes. And it just seems like we're minimizing the minutes. I mean, we didn't identify any speakers in the written minutes. I had no idea who spoke. There was a woman that spoke late in that conversation. No mention of who she was. So I think some cleaning up of our minutes might be prudent here. I realize that initial vote is probably null and void now by your July 8th vote, which then makes me ask, is in the written minutes the purchase price of $95,450 really what was verbally expressed? Because that wasn't on video, so I don't know.
Well, I appreciate, as always, your diligence in these matters. Let me just ask you a question. The minutes for June 23rd have been motioned, seconded, and adopted. Is it your intent to reopen the minutes?
No, just suggestion moving forward of having them a little tighter,
Okay.
especially if we're approving a dollar amount verbally and then seeing a written dollar amount afterwards that differ from each other.
And that is very prudent advice. And we will certainly, as always, with your suggestions, take that up for immediate consideration and make sure that we do better to make sure that those things are properly reflected. Again, thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for all you do. And I appreciate you allowing us to move on to the July 8th minute and to specifically address now the cost, Nate. Is that your concern?
Hey, Nate, it was
Yeah,
93,
just to make
150.
sure we're dealing with accurate numbers.
Yes.
The motion, it was 93, 150. I don't know where the 93, 500. Because later on, we took the 93, 150 and added the 2,300, and that's how it came to the 95, 450.
Right.
So that's,
The 93.5 written in, the 93.5 written in those minutes.
it's incorrect. You're right. No, good pickup. I just saw the 93, 150 and I guess I didn't read it close enough.
Thank you, sir, as always. Moving to the July 8th minutes. We have it been motioned, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Seeing no opposition, the minutes for July 8th, 2021 are hereby adopted. Thank you. Communication and public comments. Any communication or public comments at this time? Seeing none, we will move on to unfinished business. Discussion and action. First order of business will be the American Rescue Plan, ARPA, COVID local recovery funds update.
There is no update at this time. I've been checking very regular to make sure that the money has we've received it so that we can start our process of town hearings, public hearings to how to spend this money. But at this point, they still have not dispersed the funds.
Thank you. Comments from the board?
Should we start discussions at some point on how we would like to spend that money?
The only thing that they are saying is they're still tweaking what you can use them for. They gave us the 4 or 5 basic steps, but they're still in the process of honing in exactly what you can use that money for.
Okay, thanks.
I think that's what's holding up the disbursement, to be honest.
Public comment?
I just wanted to reflect back to Ms. Harlow's comment there 2 meetings ago when it came up to get this committee established, maybe to help with that, to start moving that forward, because I feel that money's going to come fast. And the updated version is we have 2 years to allocate it, but then we have another timeline to spend it. So we have almost a 5-year window here, according to the latest version. So I just think having a committee established to assist with us might be good, because I'll speak under boards. The Wyndham Regional is going to get a lot of money as well that we could leverage to come to the town. So it could get a little convoluted with the money coming in. So just maybe some folks could bring some ideas back for the projects that we're looking at Wyndham Regional for us. Just to.
Thank you very much. Any more application to this conversation, or can you want to move that to boards and commissions? We'll talk about it again.
Boards and commissions.
Okay.
Appropriate, yes, sir.
Wonderful. Any more comment on American Rescue Plan? Public? Okay, thank you all. Moving on to Hartley Hill Road, private section update, if any.
I talked to Robert Whitberg this morning. He emailed me and asked if I could press legal counsel into stepping up to get this done. I haven't heard anything from them, so we're still waiting for the quit claim deed to be created.
Okay. Thank you for the update. Any comment from the board? No. Any public comment on this matter? Seeing none, thank you, everyone. Moving on to website renewal update, if any.
We're still progressing. We're kind of in that spot of trying to move over the content from the existing site. We're about 75% complete with that. Hopefully in the next week, we'll be able to get that knocked out, and then it'll start working for us in terms of the transfer.
Hello and welcome. I guess I don't know when you came in.
That's good.
Good to see you. Okay, great. Thank you. Any comments? Yes.
So just, it reminded me tonight, I went to the website to look at the fund balance policy and it is not on there. So I'm wondering if we can make sure that all of the financial policies are on there. There was a lot of stuff on there, but that was not one of them. So I don't know who checked that.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you, Cynthia, as always. We will certainly follow up on that. Any other public comment?
You know, to listen to Nate was good, that we should be asking these people to say who they are, so when they're watching the show, we know who they are.
Cynthia's daughter.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. How many people we have on?
Five.
5. Apologies to the folks on the computer. Good point made by Craig. So please, everyone here in the galley, just please identify yourself when you speak. Thank you. Any further public comment on the website? Seeing none, thank you all. Moving on to Collaborative Finance Processing Manual update. Where are we?
We have not actually worked on the Collaborative Finance Processing Manual, but we are in the process. We're working with NIMRIC to get that next step done with Paul. He is working with Cynthia about a contract for the assistant treasurer. So we aren't stagnant. We're moving forward slowly but surely.
I just want to clarify, it's not really, Cynthia's daughter.
Yes.
I just want to clarify, it's not really a contract for assistant treasurer. It's a contract for financial consulting services that includes the caveat that Darlene will be appointed assistant treasurer to fill in his absence for those. So I just want to make sure, I think that was a little confused at one of the meetings that you guys had. It's not just about being assistant treasurer. It's a lot more than that. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
No, I'm sorry.
Sure.
She's saying one thing, you're saying a contract for assistant, he's saying contract for assistant treasurer, she's saying a contract for financial services, which is it?
It's going to be what Cynthia Stoddard enunciated. There is a separate contract considering the fact that our strategic partner is NEMRIC. And the work that's being done under that with the strategic partner is a separate contract, separate and apart from her role as assistant treasurer. Did I say that correctly?
I think she's being appointed as assistant treasurer.
Yes, that's true, but you're talking
working
about,
through NIMRIC.
right, but you're
It's just
also,
one of the pieces of the contract that we've said that we would be able to do.
okay,
Yeah. So
how's that?
So now I'm confused. We're gonna have a contract with NIMRIC, and in that, totally separate, we're happen to be picking that same person and appointing them as assistant town
Well,
clerk.
you're actually having a contract with NIMRIC, not with Darlene Kelly.
That's, okay.
So she works for NIMRIC. So part of what NIMRIC is offering is that we will agree for her to be assistant treasurer. But if Darlene leaves tomorrow, you still have a contract with NIMRIC,
Well,
and we would do the work.
But the
And
clarification that when you appoint somebody assistant, they then have an authorization to sign contracts or sign for receiving. So we're contracting to do the service, but we're still appointing that person, or, I mean, whoever the treasurer is appointing that person, is that right?
that is what you guys have. I presented a proposal 3 months ago as to the processes and the things that NIMRIC could do for the town, the pieces we thought that the town is missing. I didn't hear anything back about that. And so we just kind of Darlene kept doing what she does, reconcile bank statements and help where she could. We wanted to more clearly define what our role would be. The next thing I heard was that Darlene was appointed assistant treasurer. We really didn't know that was even part of it. At NIMRIC, we like to help the towns with whatever they need. So I talked to Ernie and said, is that okay that they're appointing her assistant treasurer? And he said, yes, as long as when she fills in for Paul, that someone else reconciles the bank account. So like if she writes checks or she deposits money, whatever she has to do in his absence, someone else should reconcile the bank account that month, because then there's the checks and balance. We have never had a contract where we've put that in there, that it's okay that one of our employees is an assistant treasurer under this contract. It's new.
You say you'd be auditing yourself. You'd be
Right.
actually monitoring
Right, so
yourself.
NIMRIC will balance that to make sure that she's not auditing the work that she's doing on the months she has to help fill in.
Okay,
But you have a contract with it. It just so happens that Darlene lives in Westminster, and we said, sure, well, she can be assistant to make sure that in his absence, somebody's there to sign checks and upload payroll and people get paid and all of that. So it's a little unusual of a contract that we have with you guys. I was not aware that there was a vote going on about her being assistant treasurer. We didn't know, Darlene called me and said, am I supposed to do this? Like, what are we? So we worked it out, it's fine, but we put it in the contract for NIMRIC. Now, if Darlene left and she wanted to be assistant treasurer on her own, she lives in Westminster, so she could.
the only one,
It's a little bit of a weird,
it matters mostly to Paul too, because he's the person who would actually appoint them as assistant treasurer.
right, I'm not really sure why he even came to you guys to.
That's what I'm
vote on
questioning
it,
now,
because he's an elected
because
official, he can appoint who he wants.
exactly, yeah, that's why I'm questioning, why would we even be involved with it?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay,
What you guys should be involved in is approving the contract with NIMRIC, because you're
Correct.
approving the expense to pay for that
I
contract.
agree with you 100%, yes.
I
I
don't
was-
know if the contract's been emailed to Russ yet or not. I'm saying now
Not
that Darlene's kind of taking
Not
care
yet.
of it, okay. And it outlines everything that we'll do. There just so happens that there's
Okay,
this kind of
that's what
different.
threw me off, why the select board was even involved.
So to answer your question, Millie, it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think it's just a financial service contract with an appointee.
But what they voted on was an assistant, the select board voted on an assistant
I agree
treasurer
with you.
for Paul Harlow. That's
I agree
in the
with you.
minutes
That
reflect.
meeting, there wasn't any mention of NIMRIC or a
No.
Right.
contract, it was
I
just
know,
to
mention.
hire this person. That's the way I understood it.
No, not left
Or-
out of the minutes, not ever
No.
mentioned.
Right.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And so now
I
you-
asked if I asked Paul if we should be present at that meeting to discuss it, and he said it wasn't necessary. The next thing I knew, there was an assistant treasurer appointed. So
Think-
I called him and said, we need to have a contract in our hand if you want us to do all of this other work you're asking us to do. That's not really assistant treasurer work, it's financial work.
I think he was asking for the select board to bless it, but he also could have done it without it.
The appointing of the assistant treasurer, yes, absolutely. So I just wanted to clarify that because I agree with Jason. I don't think that that was clear.
It was
in the
Not to my,
discussion.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys should see a copy of that contract and decide if it's what you even want or what you want to pay for, if you want to go somewhere else, or if you want to hire someone in-house to do that work. It's up to you. But you have to have that option in front of you to even know what you're even agreeing to.
Any more questions from the board on this matter?
Oh, that's a good question. Should we actually have the contract come back in front of us?
Yes,
Yeah, we haven't got it yet. As soon as you
he's
get
gonna
it.
get it.
Absolutely.
Any other questions from the board? Comments from the public?
Thanks, Cynthia, appreciate it.
Thank you, Cynthia, as always. Moving right along, backhoe replacement update.
I can't remember who I misspoke to, but I wasn't sure of the delivery date. So I put in your packet the delivery date that Randy, is it LaBelle from Beauregard gave us, which is end of this month or early August for delivery. So I just thought I'd clear that up.
Questions from the board?
Are we gonna talk about how we're gonna pay for it?
This is the backhoe.
We paid them.
There's the backhoe
We
paid
paid
for.
for
Now we're on the truck.
So, and the money for the backhoe came from
Capital reserve.
Equipment fund.
equipment fund,
We-
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So we settled that.
Yes.
So at some point, we'll talk about the truck, or we don't have to
No,
worry
that's
about
on
the
there,
truck.
that's on there.
Okay. Forgot
All
about
good stuff. Throw that dime if you got it. Any comments from the public? Computer?
I do.
Okay.
It's
Cynthia Stoddard, folks.
it's not really about the backhoe purchase. It's more about the process that you guys use to discuss that. And there were a couple of things that were said that I just wanted clarification on. There was a point in the discussion where there was discussion about, well, we'll get a short-term loan and then maybe have a meeting later. There was discussion about, I was curious what that thought process was, because if you have a short-term loan, you buy something, then have a meeting later, you've already spent the money. Did I miss something in that conversation? I was just curious what that thought process, how you even pictured that would be okay.
You want to, well, my view on it was, no, it wasn't okay, and that's why we took the money from the fund that was there.
We discussed all different choices, not that we thought some of them were any good at all.
Okay.
Was like.
And then the other statement that was made when you were talking about the emergency fund was that if we use that, we could replenish it next year. How would you replenish the emergency fund?
Any surplus, we'd go back to the voters and ask if they wanted to, it would be up to the voters to move the money there.
But,
well, actually, we have a right.
But what if we didn't have a surplus? It would be possible that it wouldn't be replenished.
Yeah, we'd have to come back and come up with how the plan would work.
There wasn't a thought process of, we'll raise taxes to replenish it.
No, we did not discuss.
No.
That was never.
Well, the comment was made that we'll replenish it. If we don't have money to replenish it, where is the money coming from? Is my question.
Because, can I throw out, what happened was the money for the backhoe was in the next year's budget.
Yeah, I know that.
So basically you go back to the voters and say, here, that was what our original thinking was, that we took the money, that's why we're using the word borrowing, but we shouldn't have. That we took the money and then we're going to replace it because we already we were going to the voters for the same amount, which was enough to pay for the backhoe, because the following year we're not getting a truck.
Okay. But I'm just going to make one more. This is like the 5th year in a row that it's always, we're going to figure out how to pay something later, but we're going to get it now. And it's really, the backhoe is a little bit of a different animal than what we've dealt with in the last few years, because it's a piece of equipment. If we need a piece of equipment, I understand that. But it just always feels like we have these big pockets of money that there's no worry about the planning process that ever just gets thought out beforehand. It's really frustrating to me. Like I said, the back was a little bit different of an animal, but it was clear you guys were really trying to make that fit into an emergency need. And so I'm curious too, what happened between the one vote to use emergency and then the next vote to use equipment? Was there somebody that said you cannot use emergency funding?
Yes, that's the council.
Okay.
The attorney said no.
Okay. So maybe this year we could do a little bit of brainstorming on what constitutes an emergency, so we don't have 3 meetings.
I think you're absolutely correct.
Can I say something?
Please.
So we're also hoping to, when we have time, to start a better 5-year capital plan in which we would say exactly what we need, how much money we need, when we're going to do it, and where we're going to get the money. Of course, I don't know when we're going to start, but when we have time, we're going to do that. I think we've done.
Yeah, and I would think during budgeting time, maybe put a little bit more money in the equipment reserve. So we actually build a reserve.
Right. And
Usually we put money in and spend it in the same year. It's really just a line item.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to say is that emergency reserve fund, my feeling about it is replenish it. We don't necessarily have to keep it at any certain amount, even though it says up to, what it's 20%. That doesn't mean that we can't have 15%. If we didn't have the money to put into it, then we don't have it.
Yeah,
That's
I just
all
heard
there
that
is
we
to it.
could
Yeah.
replenish it next year.
Yeah.
So I just wanted
if
clarification.
If the voters said yes, then good,
Yeah.
but it's not like we have to keep it at a certain amount.
Sir.
One of the things I wanted,
Oh, excuse
John
me.
Jones.
John
sorry, for the
Jones.
record, to discuss on, we'll talk about this more down the road in some upcoming meetings, procurement policies and the federal money that's coming in, they have a policy, and it's really detailed on what classifies an emergency for towns. And there's equipment in there. And so what I'd like to do is print that off and get it into the select board's hands so that you folks can see that as you have those conversations.
Who has a
So-
policy?
Wait, who's
So
that?
it's FEMA,
Thank you.
Federal Emergency Management Agency. So they govern this. Homeland Security governs all this money that we're getting, whether it's a pass-through grant at the state. They essentially tell us what we can and can't do and how we have to procure those services. And that was one of the documents gave there, the reimbursement we can get if our highway rolls out, we can charge out for our trucks. And so as we do that, we can get creative to replenish some of those supplies once we identify them. So that's just one of the things I'm trying to work on. See if folks can move forward with this stuff, that we start to leverage a lot of this money that I think we can use in our community.
Terrific.
One of the problems that we had, the trucks were about the most stable things as far as we're doing. And since I've been here, all of a sudden with new acts coming in, we're looking at an excavator, we're looking at a trailer, we're buying a roller, we're buying equipment that was even thought about years before this budget came. And that's what we weren't doing a good enough job as far as what are these things on schedule, what we have, we can schedule that, hey, this is good for 15 years, this is good for 10 years. It's all of a sudden we're buying equipment, we're looking at another piece of equipment. They keep coming out with new stuff to help be more productive on our roads, but we're not seeing it come. And when it does come, we're not prepared for it.
Right, that's why I said you should probably put more money
It's almost
in the
because
capital reserve.
it's so hard to earmark it when you don't know what that equipment is even going to cost, you know?
You don't.
Yeah.
You just build the reserve.
Right.
And you create
No.
your plan to know this year we need this much money, this year we need this much money. What you guys are doing is not a new concept.
Yeah.
It is something that towns do every day. I've been on that side of the table trying to convince the town we needed to buy a new excavator when our excavator was, it was 10 years old or something, but it was a piece of junk. So I get it, but it's not, you've got to think ahead. And what really bothers me here is it feels like we have so much money sitting around. I could run my budget at home easily if I had $500,000 sitting around. My car breaks down. I don't need to go fix it. I just go buy another one. So it's just, we're always in this perpetual cycle here of, oh my God, we got to do this. Oh my God, we got to do this. And I don't see that in all the other places that I'm working all the time. I get this one maybe is a little bit outside of what we've had in the past few years, but if we're not saving enough money for equipment because of what you're talking about, then we need to convince the taxpayers that we need to put more away and actually build a reserve.
I agree.
It's not hard to convince, we're not against equipment, you know, but where's the out of the box thinking too? What are other towns doing? Are they sharing equipment? Do we have to own one piece of equipment all ourselves? We talked about it with excavator, you know, and so there's some out of the box thinking that can be done too, but we're always in this like, it's an emergency, everything's an emergency.
Well, cost of everything's gonna go up too,
Right, and we need to save some more money.
substantially probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to me, we use that emergency money, the septic fails here, the roof, something happens to it that's not covered by insurance, that's an emergency. That stuff has to be fixed. But like you said, the capital plan will help. Ask us for some more money to take some money out of that emergency this year and put it in the equipment fund, the capital so that if this happens next year, you've already got that money earmarked from the townspeople already in that equipment fund. Explain to us next March, look, last year we ran into a problem, we needed a backhoe. We really wanted to, we don't need this much emergency money sitting around. It's hard to define an emergency. We're gonna move it to capital reserve and actually build the reserve.
I would
I would go for that.
I would agree 100%, because when we made that emergency fund, I had a hard time figuring out.
Well, you know how I felt about it.
Yeah, I know, it's like
you
we're
guys are
handing-
gonna be arguing someday about what's an emergency.
Oh, right from day one, we couldn't even agree on how to write it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So maybe it's time to move some of that out of there, put it in the capital reserve for equipment,
Yeah,
and then it's there, and we don't have this.
Well, the good news is the next topic on the new business will be exactly what we were just discussing.
Yeah, I'm curious how that's getting.
Is there any further discussion on the backhoe replacement from the public on the computer? Seeing none, thank you all for your commentary. Okay, new business. First order of business, truck purchase, financing discussion.
I will, so that's the truck, that's the deal, that's how much money we have, according to Russ. What we have left in the capital fund is roughly 50,000. That means we're $83,000 short. Second page was if they wanted to borrow the money for it. This is another whole discussion. That's what you could do. 2 years of payment in arrear is really a 3 years, because you don't make a payment when you actually purchase it. You pay the following year, then the following year. And not that I'm for it. I was just trying to make your choices a little clearer. So right now, it's 133. You take 50 out of the capital, you're $83,000 short. However, next year, that's when you were going to buy the backhoe. Is the truck, I ordered this truck August or September of last year. It is going to be built the end of this month, and by the time he sees it, it'll be another 3 months, so you're looking at September, October before you'd see it. And that's, like I said, that's what's happening. We've already ordered all of next year's trucks, so any town that wanted a truck has already had to order for all of next year. In the price of the truck's going up, but the price of the equipment, and we're getting to a point where the equipment that's on the truck is going to be almost as much as the cab and chassis, because the equipment took huge raises this year because of steel, and 100% of all equipment is made in Canada, and the dollar exchange between the US and Canada just is not very good. And that's what's really killing the equipment right now. Don't ask me why everyone's owned in Canada. We still can't figure that out, but that's where we're at. So I was already hit up. So I just had the 62,500. That's a package that came in, and they already gave me an estimate. Next year, it's going to be 85,000 to 90,000 for the same package. It shows you how bad it is. The truck, if you ordered it and wait another year, if the base cost was 117 for this truck, it'd probably go to 121 or something like that. So it's not a huge amount on the truck, it's just equipment on it. And one of the reasons is you can't get the equipment. You're over a year to get the equipment. So and obviously the cab and chassis doesn't do anything without the equipment. And there's less equipment companies around. There's only 1 or 2 left doing it. And they're just, like anybody else, can't get help, and they're booked out so far that you have to almost beg them to get the equipment to put on the chassis. It's kind of a weird position we're in. Who knows, but I would think this is going to last at least 2 years.
I have a quick question. So what do you mean by equipment? Is that the plow and the plow blade?
Yeah, that would be the 62.5 is the base, and then he gets to choose what blade. The blades go from, and then he has the other thing, that $7,800 blade. I just bought one today, and it was $11,000 for the same blade.
Yeah.
It's gone nuts.
I just want to know what you meant by equipment.
That's the equipment. So the truck is there, the rest is the warranty, and then the bottom where it says Viking, anything that says Viking or Everest, that's the equipment that goes on it.
Okay.
So this is costing us it's around $70,000, and you're looking at almost $100,000 next year for the same equipment. It shocked me. I couldn't get over it.
Yeah.
Chair recognizes John Jones.
Thank you, Chair. The funding we're getting, hopefully in the next couple of months, so we can earmark and go through, we can use it for one-time things. And so there's only a stipulation for fire districts. That's a separate thing for them to ask the select board for some of that money. And maybe there's an opportunity here, I'll let you folks look at it, to use some of that money to help soften some of these expenses we're seeing right now with the equipment.
It's a possibility. I've done 4 or 5 so far this year, but every one you have to destroy the trade. They have to be pre-emissions, which means it had to be a truck before 2010. So it's causing a lot of emissions problems. And then there is a buyback on some of that stuff, but you can see they're trading, we got 62,000 for it.
No, I'm sorry, no, go ahead with the new truck. I'm
No.
saying the funding we're getting for, we're talking about the shortfalls we're having.
Yeah.
If we need 40 grand in this fund for the, when that money comes in, we earmark, because you folks are gonna earmark this through, what is it? So maybe I'm just using 40,000 as an example here.
You're talking about ARPA fund?
Yes, the area.
Unless something changes, the paperwork we got before, I don't think equipment was,
Now, where are you seeing that that particular purchase would be eligible?
You're allowed to use it for one-time purchases that don't, you can't start something. And so,
That's not the initial stuff that we received.
it was pretty limited, but
It was
could be
very limited to
used.
public service, not equipment nor infrastructure.
COVID-related
So
infrastructure.
that's why we
sewer
still
water.
haven't got all the
So-
details yet.
Right, so on the back end of that, there's talk about infrastructure repairs and maintenance. Equipment falls under what we need to maintain that infrastructure.
I'm not discouraging you, I'm just saying, yeah, I don't know where it's coming. I don't,
We haven't got that yet
yeah.
in any way, shape, or form. because
I will print it off and have it in your hands by next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Now you folks can at least look at it. I'm just saying, consider it, look at it, let's see what we can do.
We'll look at anything when
Funding.
it comes to money.
Yeah.
May I make a comment? Thank you. So building off of Larry's June 21st memo, the select board does not have the authority to place, forgive me. We need voter approval and/or an annual special meeting, either for the loan to cure it, or, and Cynthia, if I'm wrong, please tell me.
A lawyer, remember?
No. If I'm wrong, we can also go to the voters and make an argument for, as you said, taking some of the money out of the emergency fund.
We definitely would have to have a public hearing for the
Yes.
emergency reserve fund.
We would, but that seems like the viable thing to do, unless anyone has other suggestions. Yes, Mr. Jones, John Jones.
So I have one more. Can the select board borrow money without voter approval? Obviously, get voter approval, but there is borrowing from the state municipal equipment loan fund for purchases that you could look at exploring. And fire department can do it as well. It's under 19 VSA section 304A and 1786B. And so this is right on Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns. If you folks go on there, there's 10 bullets. It gives you some lateral flexibility on things. And so you could probably explore that with those folks and see.
What did you say, John, could borrow from what?
Here.
Thank you,
I
sir.
highlighted the bullet for you.
Still, the answer to the question is, do we have the authority to borrow money?
State fund.
This loan in here that I have through Daimler is what they do is they look at, they have attorneys on there when we go to them. We do loan a lot of money through Daimler Benz, who's our main. And they actually have to look at each town, see how they're chartered and see whether the select board has a right to borrow it. Some towns, each year, they have to have a renewal of the lease, so they look at how it's chartered. So even on that finance, they look at somewhere along the line, the voters couldn't make the town turn it back in, they have to take it back. Now, would they on this one, because of such a down payment? Of course, no town would do it. But it's kind of, I don't think there's a question that we couldn't borrow the money. I'm just questioning why, for example, on this, even if you borrow for 2 years, you're gonna pay $5,000 worth of interest when, like we've been saying right along, we do have the money, but it's in another pool, which is the emergency fund that's sitting there that we're not getting that kind of interest. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to us. I would agree with him to go to the voters and say, instead of borrowing the money, why don't we just take it from this fund and we'll let it build up more next year because we won't be taking as much out.
Chair recognizes Cynthia Stoddard.
So we haven't already ordered this truck.
No, the truck was on order for whether Westminster takes it or not.
Okay.
So if Westminster decides, I don't want it, you have to go.
Okay, so I was gonna say, what different, if we've already ordered it, we're committed to buying it, we really don't have a choice but to pay for it, but,
Yeah.
because like you're saying, you come to the voters, I think they'd say no, but what if they did? Then you have
Well, we went to the
order.
voters, let's back up. We went to the voters and we told you that we were going to be spending this amount of money on a truck. We did tell the voters we were buying a truck this year, and we told them how much. We just kind of took the money from the truck and put it towards, so really, if we go to the voters and do what Kevin's saying, have a meeting, go to the voters, even indirectly, we're actually asking the money for the backhoe. Really is what we're doing. Because we couldn't wait for the backhoe, we could wait for the truck. If the truck was first, we wouldn't have this discussion, we'd be having a meeting for the backhoe. But the only reason we did it was on a time level where the backhoe had to have a decision right away, otherwise we would have delayed it and gone to the voters for that.
I mean, I have an issue with you saying you have no right to commit the voters to a payment in the future doing a loan. And I agree with you, if we have money sitting somewhere.
I didn't say, I guess you misunderstood, I'm saying the finance company looks at that. When they go to look at, see how the town is chartered, that's what they're looking at. It's like who can borrow the money now? So when we send it to them.
Finance company, the voters are who I care about.
Okay, well, I'm
And
just.
I think that they have to be asked if they want to commit them to a payment in the future.
I don't think I would disagree with you there.
Sir,
I have kind of a dumb question, actually. It may actually be a moot point, but have any of this equipment gone out for bids to anybody? Or do we just look somebody up and say, okay, we're buying it from you? Did anybody ask for a low price on this stuff?
Yeah, we do.
Yes, we got 3 prices.
Oh, you did?
New and used.
Because it seems like everything's just set in stone right now. We're going with this company and this company, and we're buying this for this price and this price for this price. So it's like, is there anything cheaper out there?
well, if I may, Kevin Hughes, if I may just interject, we do have the COVID issue,
Sure.
which has created a backlog in the.
That's everywhere, probably.
Right. So one of the things we ran up against with backhoe was the possibility of, Chuck, you correct me, buy it or lose it, right? And
Correct, but we did end up
We
going
did
with
go
the cheapest
Right.
bid.
Right.
So it was Chuck Lawrence Road Foreman. So we went with the cheapest price and also availability.
In the used one. We looked at
We
used.
looked at the used one too, and
I
there
remember you
was,
talking that last week.
yeah, there wasn't much difference between actually new and used with what was available. So they chose to go with new, had a better warranty, and of course, being brand new, it just makes more sense. So longevity wise and trade-in value and all that. So it was just more bang for your buck at the end of the day.
plus
That's
facing
why.
a seasonal backdrop too. I mean, you have a limited window to do certain
Oh,
work
yeah.
requiring that piece of equipment.
So, yeah, some of the other ones wasn't even an option. So if we had gone with Cat or John Deere, it wouldn't even have been an option this year to be able to get that piece of equipment. We chose Case because it was cheaper and also it was going to be available. Like Craig was talking, the dealer had ordered so many units for his dealership, and he actually had a backhoe that hadn't had a name put on it yet. So it was available to us. So the select board voted to purchase it and put our name on it. So that's how we ended up with it.
Yeah.
But we did, we ended up going with Cat, Case, and John Deere, and every one of them gave the price of a new and used backhoe that they had available. And the Case turned out that a brand new one was the best deal out of all of them. So that's how we ended up there anyway.
Patsy, can you please state your name for the camera and for the minutes?
Oh, I thought I did.
You did
Oh,
not.
Pat Mayo. What did it?
Thank you, Patrick Mann. So to just finish up, so then calling for a meeting, a town meeting, to ask for the mechanism in which to pay for the 10-wheeler, which would include also going to the emergency fund
Right.
for that money.
Oh, yeah, I understand all that.
Okay.
I was just, the question is, that I had was basically, well, this gone out for bids, let's say like everything's set in stone now, we're going with this company for this truck and this for that, but last meeting, it was also decided on, was the case in the last meeting, but the truck thing never came up. And they said, well, we're gonna buy that next year, we're gonna buy it this year, we're gonna buy it next year. But like, as you just said, it was on order, it's been on order since all being built since last year, correct?
So it's totally changed. We used to do is wait to March, that meeting get over with, and all the towns would call in April and May and start to say, hey, we need the bid. We would bid it, and then they would start building them in June so they can have them for the fall. Now we're a year be out. So how do you get a truck? So now what we sit down is we actually, as a dealer, look at, okay, there's 72 towns that we have already we already know who has trucks in order, in their budget. So we say, yeah, okay, out of 72 towns that I might do, I'll get 50 of them. And then we say, how many are six-wheelers? How many are tandems? How many are this? And then we throw the order in. We just say, here, for the first and second quarter, don't want them for third and fourth quarter because there won't be that year, there'll be a following year. So and it's how bad it is. I delivered a truck 6 weeks ago, I guess it's been. It was ordered in April of 2018. I just delivered it. So they couldn't have ordered it. I ordered one that was special, and the town of Woodstock called me and go, hey, where are we at? And I said, well, you're still a year away, but it's a one on order. Do we go to bid? Yeah, we do, because Chuck calls around to 2 other dealers. Hey, we're looking at buying this truck right here. Could you bid and give us a price? So he calls 2 other dealers. The problem we got now is we're like the only dealer with a trade-in for $62,000. Really, a lot of dealers go, we don't want to trade it. We just don't want to deal with it. So it's getting to be less. The other problem is you can't bid the bodies. So in other words, if you want that equipment, they're gone with Viking. Viking is territorial. Nobody else will bid a Viking. So I always used to complain when you want to go up with a truck, but wait a minute, the equipment's almost half. And if you're going with that equipment, you're only getting one price, and there's only two equipment guys. That's all. And the only reason is they all gone to factory now. There is no more storage, and you're buying direct. So it is confusing. But to answer your question, if the select board came along and said, we want to go with this truck, the next thing they should do
That's
is
fine. That's
call, no, the next thing should be, they should call 2 more dealers just to make sure that there is no other truck out there and that price is reasonable.
To the last truck, we did that.
We did.
And they won't bid on it because it's not in their territory, it's not in their area. So I don't think it's from lack of trying. They literally won't give you the price on it.
Every day I get ones from Burlington, South Burlington, and I'm going, thank you, but no, I'm not going to drive up there and spend a day to appraise a truck. It takes you a day to come up with a bid and spend 2 days doing it all, knowing that, why would you buy it from me? And really, honestly, we're all within a couple $1,000s. It's more the trade. I've always made sure that we gave more for the trade than anybody because it's our town. So the one thing our town has, if this truck was already in order, and if you were, let's say, Woodstock, I'd sell you that same truck for Woodstock. Westminster doesn't get a discount. Where they get the discount is on the trade. We've been given, and always you get about 10 grand more for trade because you're in my town. Because the trade's worth more coming from my local town than it is. And it's getting to a point where this trade next year, or 2 years from now, he's into the $80,000 or $90,000 trades. They're getting to be more and more expensive because of the price of new ones. That the trade is going to determine what's going to happen with this market.
And we tend to take care of them a little better than a lot of other towns.
And as to build up the clientele, we have to find a home for these used ones. And what we're finding that all these clienteles are contractors that do Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. They will call because they bought Westminster's truck before. It was a good truck. They'll call back and they'll pay more for Woodstock, Westminster, and a few towns. It is, the business has changed in the last 20 years, that's for sure.
Any further commentary from the board?
And this is still about the truck.
Yes.
So it seems like these are our options. To go to the public and ask to take money out of the emergency reserve fund,
Yes.
purchase a truck, not to purchase a truck this year, or borrow money to finish purchasing the truck.
Ask the voters for permission to borrow the money, yes.
Are those the only three options we have? Are we missing any others?
How much money are we looking for?
Pardon?
How much money are we looking for? What's the difference?
What
between
we're
we
short-
have?
3,000?
83.
I know that's really hard to make up in a budget year, but are there any other things that we're doing this year that we could cut?
Can I just ask the question, what if we had an emergency, like a flood that we had, or we lost roads, or just like where does that money come from? If you use this money out of the emergency fund for this truck, then if you had a real emergency, isn't that what it's for, is a
Very good question, and I'm going to pivot to whoever was here for Irene to really lay the groundwork of what happens when that happens.
I wasn't here.
I mean, that
but
was
I
an
do know what
extensive,
happened.
extreme example. but-
Toby was
Right.
here and I was here. What,
It
Toby, you were
doesn't
here,
take
right?
much to spend $100,000 either.
Yeah,
Not hardly at all.
No, I mean,
Honestly,
sit
no.
down.
honestly, that one was a little different because it wasn't just Westminster, it was the whole area. And so they just, FEMA got involved, everybody got called. We just called up a local bank and they already had money coming in that we needed $1 million to get started and all that. And so there was a group effort of everybody coming in to help out. So it was a little different. But that is my definition of an emergency. We lost road. The other emergency we had was Bemis Hill. Bemis Hill wiped out when it was 180. We fought for that money for years. Chuck probably wasn't in there then. And that was because the road got wiped out. That was totally unique to Westminster. It was rare. And we fought for 4 years before we got that money back. So we went, borrowed the money, paid the loan off, and then we end up getting it all, most of it back from the state as part of the 2011 also, because it was the year
Our
before.
surplus all the time.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly.
Borrowed the money, paid for the money, and got money,
Well,
and was taxed on it. This
Yeah.
is why we're having surplus issues. I
but
know
we,
people don't think surpluses are an issue, but they are.
They are. They
They
are.
but we kept being told that we weren't gonna get the money, so then we finally got it. So I think in the big world of emergency, yes, you just go and do what you gotta do. So I'm questioning like everybody else, why did we put the word emergency into this fund when we need it if it's going to use for something like this? Because this might not, in some people's mind, consider it being an emergency, you know?
Remember too, we have a large undesignated surplus as well.
You're just throwing a monkey wrench into it, isn't there?
So in the general fund, we not only have this emergency fund, we have a lot of money in the undesignated surplus. So we have a lot of money kind of just laying around. Why
Right,
it's really easy to not worry about planning.
Well, but
But-
does that mean you can just write a check for 83,000 and not put it into any?
If you want to do that, you'll probably hear from me about
Right,
it.
exactly.
Because I
So-
think you should ask the voters to use the undesignated, but,
Right.
so in your question though about the emergency that might come up, we have a cushion in the general fund as well as this emergency fund. So not only do we have this money to help pay for the road that might wash out in the emergency fund, we have it.
That was just an
Yeah.
example.
No, I think it's a
I'm just
great
talking about
example,
other,
But Cynthia,
I
you
don't
brought up a
know.
good point, so we do have a third choice. The third choice is to reach into, I'm picking on Chuck, but it would have to come out of his budget.
Not necessarily, there might be something that the town was
Oh, really?
planned to do.
So I was thinking that,
Their highway budget's part of their general fund.
but if we were to reach in and take 75,000, 83,000 out of the paving, we would actually short paving, but we would actually have a right to do that. Correct? Yeah. So I'm wondering if we should not have another meeting where we go back and look to see where we could actually get as much money, see how close we could get to it out of this year's budget, is what
Yeah,
you're saying?
But does then that put you behind in your paving? So, but
Yeah.
that's why I say.
Well, I'm just
That's
using
why
that
I said,
example.
I mean, I haven't looked at the budget to see where it could be. It doesn't necessarily have to be out of the highway budget. I don't know if there's anything big in the other,
I don't know.
but I
so
mean,
I'm sorry, again, are you saying you're gonna take 73 or 83,000 out of the highway budget and you're just gonna?
Technically you could. It's just a discussion. I'm not saying we do
New
it.
roads, have that.
Yeah.
you know,
No.
I know you guys are laughing, but
But no.
when in my household, and in everybody's household, we all have to, when something comes up that has to be done, we have to cut somewhere else. So I get that we would be behind in paving. I'm not suggesting that we take it out of paving. I mean, I understand you're just using that as an example, but you laugh about it, but we all have to do it.
No,
And
I don't think it's a joke. I really think we need to go back and look at everything from the fuel budget to,
right, because
sand
from
and
what I
gravel, all
understand,
that.
there's a surplus in the highway budget this year.
right,
So where did that
right.
come from? And was it because we got more money than we spent? I don't know. I didn't analyze it enough to know, but I'm not even saying that's what we have to do. I'm just saying that is the other option.
I would agree with you, yeah.
So, Chuck Lawrence, road foreman. So, when we get reimbursed from Quarry Road, all that came out of my budget.
Yeah.
Our budget, it's all our money.
Yeah.
But that came out of the highway budget. We did a job, it was a grant job. When we get reimbursed for that, that money is what you should be using for something like this. Don't take it out of the paving budget.
No, don't.
I'm just saying,
No,
or
no,
whatever,
yeah.
gravel or anything else, or culverts or whatever, it should be, that's your surplus.
Well, that's why they need to separate the highway fund from the general
I
fund.
agree 1,000,
So that
that's what
when,
we
at
talked
the
about
end of
last
the year,
meeting.
you know what surplus belongs to what, and you're right.
Exactly.
Probably part of that large surplus that we have right now is mostly highway. We just can't prove it because we haven't tracked it over the years. That's the solution
Didn't
to
we just
that.
talk about that money coming in and it couldn't go back to that, even though it was highway reimbursement?
Because they're not separate budgets.
Because the way it's set up now.
His budget,
Correct.
right? We just talked about that.
But,
Okay.
we might not come up with 83, but maybe we could at least come up with 30 or 40, and basically it would just lighten the burden a little bit. So I think that before we go to the voters and ask for the money, we should take one look at it. In the budget we're in, what she says, what can we come up with in dollar amounts to go towards that?
Further discussion? Yes, Russ?
Russ Oliver. I would suggest, though, that we don't cut anything real. So don't cut paving.
We'll only
you know,
cut
don't-
make-believe.
Right.
That's all we're
God, I
cutting.
hope
Where, I mean,
everything's
you know.
real.
But no, the emergency, the other surplus is funny money. It's
No,
money
but
that's already designated for the
good
next year as
example,
opposed to-
where did the price of fuel go? Because that's a crystal ball, and we're halfway, we just started the year, but is the price going up? We have a lot, we can look at it to see where we're at, that's all on it.
So let me suggest something. If there's a point where the town does want to break out the highway budget, we're at the beginning of a fiscal year. Why couldn't we haven't been audited yet. Why couldn't we analyze this last fiscal year budget to see what the highway, why can't we break it out July 1st? Then there might be a surplus in the highway. It's gonna minimize the town's
Yeah, I would agree
undesignated
with you.
surplus.
Yeah.
So there might be money in that highway. We would start at zero on, I would have to talk to the auditor and see what that, we haven't closed the books completely here for June 30th. So when I create a highway fund somewhere, we have to start with some number. And it's an agreed upon, in Guilford, we did it, I sat down with the highway foreman and said, okay, this is the number I came up with. Is this an agreed upon number? And we started the fund with that number.
Normally, when we take that fund, we skip a year though, right? Normally, if we get done last year, we spend this year coming up with the audit to go back to the voters next year to say, we want to take and put the money into the following year. But what you're saying is, you're going back right now and look at
How we ended the June
How we
30th
ended it.
FY. Yeah, I'd have to check with the auditor to see what the legalities of it are and if that is proper accounting to do that right
I
now.
was gonna say, that was always the issue, was that you're skipping that year. You go, you know what I'm saying, you jump, when we go to the voters next March, we've already known what that passes, but we're already saying, we're gonna use that surplus to go to the following year,
Right,
not
but
the
we
year.
have a highway budget. We
Right.
know, it just happens to be
I'm with you, if you
embedded
can
in
look
with
at
the-
it.
So the town has voted on a highway budget, they just didn't vote it separately.
Right.
You pull you take that out of the general fund, create a highway fund with that budget, and try to come up with what during this last fiscal year was their revenues and what was their expenses. You may have to start it at zero, I don't know, and they may have to, you know what I mean, and then go forward from there, but
I think it's a good
just a
input.
thought.
I think the suggestions you're making are wonderful, and I'm wondering whether you're volunteering.
No, probably it would be something, I'm in Rockingham 3 days a week right now, so probably be something Darlene would take on with that.
Oh, good. Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
It's definitely worth doing that, since, really, yeah. Because that's the goal we've been talking about, getting there anyways.
Okay, I think we're talking this to death.
John Jones.
That's fine. No, that's fine. Actually, I was trying to go back to what Miley asked, but we're past that for now. Let's talk about that. It's been brought up in the past, and towns in Vermont do this. Is the intention to strip out the highway from the town, the intention to set them up as their own district?
Not typically in what I've seen, no.
So I'm trying to understand the benefit if you're not establishing a district for the highway like other towns do. Hold on, let me finish here. Versus just keeping it under the select board. What is the benefit? You're essentially taking, so the treasurer would have to keep another ledger balance. We're going to have this conversation in the next meeting about some other things. So I just was trying to understand the intention here to remove the highway out from the town. Is it its own district? Is that how you're trying to set it up?
It's just a bookkeeper.
Do you want
Clarity.
me to?
Yeah.
The benefits that I see are that you keep the highway dollars. It's a separate fund within your accounting system. It is still a general fund under the purview of the select board. You don't have a different board. It's just another accounting method.
Yeah.
So that you know at the beginning of the year, the highway started with this money, this is the revenue they got in, this is the expenses, and this is the balance that's left.
So the Bennington Highway set up there. We have Bennington Town at 0, then they have 1, which is the highway, 2, which is their fire district, the fire department. And when they're set up that way, any money that comes from up above in incentives get broken out evenly based upon the rate for their budget over there and the town's budget. They will be separate.
You'd have to give me an example of the money you're talking about, because if he applies for a grant for a highway project and the expense hits the highway project, his grant pays for that the entire, you don't split it across the funds.
Which right now, we're taking all that grant money and just putting it back into the
Yeah,
general.
I just wanted clarification on this.
It's more to keep track of the revenue.
I will say though, just so that everybody understands, you are going to have a little bit more, you should vote that highway budget separate. The tax rate's gonna be the highest one out of the group. And you also have to, and I can't remember what your budget, I can't remember if you budget the benefits, health insurance and all of that in the department or no?
It gets in the executive department.
Right, so
we'd have to
that
break
would
it out.
also break out. So your budget would actually be higher than what you're normally seeing because your payroll and benefits actually is the biggest part of the budget.
The budget's the same, it's just separated out. It's just more,
You have more
transparent.
expenses. You have more expenses to look at and that are part of the highway budget than you're used to seeing. You're looking right now just at your expenses for, right. But payroll and the benefits that go along with payroll are the biggest part of the entire budget.
but
So that would be a change.
so the extra money that we get now that goes into the general fund that covers that would just be separated out and would actually come to the highway. So we just have a couple more line items, but at the end of the day, the money's still the money.
Right.
Any further comments from anyone from the computer? Okay.
Question.
Yes, Russ Lazarick.
When do we need a decision on the financing for the truck buy?
Another month or so. There's no rush. A month.
Month isn't long.
Month is not long, and we also have to schedule a
Breaking
meeting.
it up could really be worked out in a month.
We have to notify with a notification for a town meeting,
30 days.
30 days.
So.
So 2
You gotta
months.
take the easiest path.
I agree with you. I mean, if I were you, I'd probably warn a meeting. And maybe it's just, can we move some of that money in the emergency fund over to the capital reserve to start building it? It doesn't even have to be
Warning the meeting doesn't
specific.
change any of that. We can still continue on with that program.
Yeah.
Take a motion to warn that meeting.
What do you need, a date to warn it?
I would take that too.
David has something.
Can I just interject?
Please.
Kevin? There will be on August 31 a vote on approving within Westminster on approving a financial separation agreement, financial agreement with the Unified District as part of reestablishing the town school district. And also another article to expand the sort of existing interim board, it's got 3 members, to 5 members. So it may be possible to have this issue dealt with at the same time.
Could it be the same?
August 31.
That one's gonna be that one's just a regular town meeting, not an Australian vote.
It's Australia, that's Australia.
So where this one really wouldn't be an Australian, it'd be an open meeting, though, right?
Could.
Right.
It could, or it could be,
You can have both, I guess.
yes.
You'd have an
I'm not-
informational meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you need to have this as an open town meeting. You could have it as Australian with a hearing prior to. That is this
I mean,
monetary issue.
we could do August 31st, which is, it's a Tuesday. It's the last day of the month, obviously. That still gives us, if we do it now and something changes, we still have until, we have one more meeting and still be 30 days out if it doesn't work. That makes sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, although having the vote is not the same as a public hearing.
Right.
That's the only.
That's what I'm saying. It's not the same, but
Public hearing before the vote.
Yeah, you would have to have a public hearing.
And warning, in the warning, you need to decide, are you asking town voters to approve using the surplus, undesignated surplus funds, or asking the town voters to use the emergency funds? And I think that there's a fairly basic decision you have to make once you know how much undesignated surplus you have, and once you have decided whether you want to use emergency funds at all.
As long as you come up with great answers, that should be enough time. Sounds like a great idea to me.
what do you want to do?
Well, he's saying that we should warn a hearing about taking the money from the undesignated surplus instead of the emergency reserve fund, which makes me much happier, because then you don't set a precedent of borrowing money from the emergency reserve fund.
The only question is normally we don't discuss that until later in the year. It's
I
also
know.
early in the year we discuss.
I know, it is early, but if it's possible,
And
then,
there's this convenient
yeah.
other.
But if we go ahead and, at least as a select board, to get Russ going on and say we're gonna do the 31st, that gives us enough time to come back to one more meeting and have the discussion.
Exactly.
I so move.
Thank you, Toby.
And I second that.
You moved what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I move that we use, with David's suggestion about using the
August 31st.
So you're gonna include the August, you're gonna include, well, I just, yeah, no. Nate just called and said you needed more detail, so am I supposed to just pull this out of the air, you guys? Come on.
Let's hope Nate's watching the show. He'll say that.
It's a meeting that's going to happen, and we'll put our other
You just
issue
can't,
into.
you can't piggyback onto the school board just because you want to. You can't piggyback onto this just because that's what you want to do, I don't think, can you? I'm
Well,
sorry.
no, we can use the time
Okay.
to.
The only reason I came up with this is 30-day notice. The next meeting is on the 28th. So we have one more meeting is the 28th. We still have the 30 days.
So
Time.
there is no motion.
No.
I just.
No, I don't know.
Yeah,
what
she's
she-
so moved, but yeah.
You're just gonna discuss at the next meeting what you want to have the warning date. There's
That's
no
correct.
motion.
You're right. We'll just put it on the next meeting.
August 28th is not enough time to get the,
July 28th.
July 28th is not time enough to warn a piggyback to the Australian ballot on the 31st, because the shopper only comes out once a week. So that would be a Wednesday, so it would be the following Wednesday, and that's already too late.
Thank you.
Does this have to be Australian? Is that a question of being
No.
Australian? You're gonna have a lot of people that aren't gonna know what it means.
No, it's not gonna be. It's gonna be just by coincidence. it'll be the
I
same.
think if you, excuse me,
Please.
David Major,
Please.
I think if you are going to do it at the same time as this other vote, you would want to do it Australian, and you'd have a hearing a week prior to, or something like that. And I think you're right, Russ, you would have to make the decision right now.
Right now. It's got to be right now.
That you would do, that you'd warn that. Australian vote. But it certainly doesn't have to be, and it was just
Just have a public hearing with a floor vote.
Yeah, I would keep it simple, because you're opening yourself up for a lot of people not understanding.
Yes, Cynthia Stoddard.
Are we able to vote in Westminster money items Australian ballot? I thought that's
didn't-
not how we vote.
I'm gonna say, I thought from day one, we're not doing this Australian ballot. We're just having like a
I don't
typical
think
open
we
meeting
even
where we
legally
move it on the floor, second, and the people say yay or nay. It's really what we're gonna
It's a
do.
special
And we have
meeting.
the discussion and the vote.
Right, the only reason would you ever do it, I was thinking, was that if they have any questions, they could put the school on the agenda, so if somebody wanted to ask questions about it, it could, I guess, whatever.
Russell? Excuse me, I didn't mean to be rude. How quickly will you need a determination as to exactly what we're putting on that
If
warning?
you're not piggybacking it to August 31st, the urgency's gone. So you'll just pick another date that you will be doing this in person and at a location of your choice.
I was alluding to that we were going to at least try to vet the other money utilization.
I guess you lost me.
You get two choices.
You get, right, but you're gonna do this in person, so,
No, forget that. Didn't we just have a discussion? You would know where I stood beforehand.
right.
Kevin Hughes, chair, to take the money out of the emergency fund or get a loan.
Well, now there's a third one,
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
so.
So, but according to David, we have to have specifically what that warning is going to be. What are we actually asking them to consider?
No, even the article has to be what you're voting on, right? We are moving money from here.
Right, that's the question I'm asking.
So
I think
why
that-
don't we just put it on the agenda for next time, so that Russ could come back? Because we've discussed surplus, we've discussed some things that Cynthia brought up that we should just, and come back to us with those three, and then we would decide as select board that this is the one we want to pursue, and this is the one we want to ask the voters.
On the 28th.
On the 28th. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You
Yes.
got a little bit of homework there.
I didn't think you had time enough if you wait.
We're not gonna wait till, if
not gonna-
it's after the
we're not gonna
31st, it's no big deal.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's.
Nothing looks more foolish for us to rush in there and not have it. And I agree with Cynthia and everything. We look at all the different choices, and then as a select board, we choose, this is the one we want to ask, so it's clear cut why we're asking for it.
Can we move on?
Yes, we can, unless there is any further comment. Seeing none, moving on to the Prudential Committee.
So she withdraw her motion?
Yeah, we had a so moved. Sorry, we did. It was insistent.
Yeah, she's got to withdraw.
No, Susan said
Actually,
that.
Susan. Okay, Prudential Committee, financial discussion.
Okay. So in your packet, you have Katie Dearborn's brief memorandum stating what they need for paperwork. We had this on your agendas just so that you could get ready for next meeting, which will be with the Prudential Committee. So anyway, it seems like it's a matter of paperwork, not dipping into funds that we can't, or have that discussion, dipping into funds we can't. So it will be it'll be done in a sequence that the fire district would get their payment as they always do after taxes are received, which would be the first one in the latter part of September, early October, minus the homestead and pilot. And when we got that check in November from the state, then they would get a portion of that in accordance with the calculations from the state of how they would do it. So then they can monitor the input of it so that they can continue with their grant proposal. And we would still be able to be transparent to the taxpayers where the monies are still what we voted on. So it will be a little bit more work, but it'll be very doable. And it makes sense that that's.
And we will have Chad Hewitt through it all the way, correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Any discussion from the board? General public? Computer? Seeing none, moving on to parking restrictions ordinance, Forest Road, update.
So what I sent you in your packet has been updated. I finally got the Wyndham County Sheriff to weigh in, and they are the ones who really wanted the last sentence in under Forest Road, which I'll read because you don't have it. Hopefully you have a packet. All offenses shall be counted on a calendar year basis and in accordance with 23 VSA Section 1008. This ordinance has been created for the safety of the public and the access of emergency vehicles and responders. With that, then illegal parking on Forest Road would be prohibited on both sides and would be enforceable. So that's what I was waiting for, is their response to the wording. And Chuck and I met with the group from Forest Road and walked the whole thing. And pretty much we're in agreement of what we need to do. They might at some point get together and petition for us to change the one-way, reverse it. Instead of coming down the hill on the Bellows Falls end, we would make all traffic go into Gageville and come head north on the road and then leave Forest Road going north towards Bellows Falls. We feel that could possibly restrict or add burden to those people that are infringing on the benefit of the road and doing unlawful things with parking. So that is a discussion they're going to have later, but all the players seem to be pretty open to the concept, but that's not in front of you. The policy is at this point.
So you need us to adopt this policy?
You can, if you're ready to. If you're not, then it's a draft still.
But even if we adopt it, they're not going to enforce this until
60 days.
60 days after August 11th. Right.
60 days after this date.
Well, it says here, it says duty on this date, the 11th day of August, 2021. What does that mean? Date of enactment. On the back page, see what it says?
Sorry.
So I'm thinking that on August 11th it becomes, but it doesn't become, and you can't enforce it for another 60 days after that.
Yep, the dates will have to be changed. Sorry.
Oh, that's the wrong date? Okay, that's fine.
So we will wait till the next meeting and have this document amended appropriately.
Yep.
Any additional information from the affected citizens too can be checked in on if they have anything else that comes up.
Yep.
Any comment?
No, it looks okay outside that.
Okay, from the public? Okay, moving on.
I have one question on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Pat Mayo, on the fines. I read in here on the other one that I had earlier, or the previous one, the fines were like first offense 50, 100, but you could also pay, instead of paying that actual fine itself, instead of going to a court to pay it, it was just like you pay a administrative fee or something. You had written on there.
On parking, that doesn't apply.
It doesn't. Okay.
So that's why we had to put the fine schedule in it.
Okay.
Because there is no negotiation to a parking ticket. You're
Right.
either parking or you're not.
Exactly. Right. Okay.
Thanks, sir. Moving on to appointment to Lister's position, Joan Harlow.
In your packet, you have a request for consideration to fill the empty Lister spot for the remainder of 2021. She has an abundance of experience with the town of Rockingham as a Lister. We have talked to the Listers, of course, and they're falling behind on the clerical part, and Joan that's really where her roundhouse is. This would be a great fit for them, and I would recommend it. Right now, we are showing some.
I'll move that we, to move it along, I'll move, before she changes her mind, I'll move that we appoint Joan Harlow to the position as one of the remainder of this year as a lister.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made to appoint Joan Harlow as a lister. I second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Another Harlow in town running something, I love it.
Joan Harlow is now appointed as a lister. Resignation and appointment, Unified School Board. Welcome, sir.
Okay, thank you.
In your packet, you have the official response from from Cheryl, and David's here to speak on her behalf.
Okay. And on Elise Manning's behalf, because we are in this interim period between having voted to reform our own town school district and next fiscal year, which begins July 1, 2022, where we have to work out the finances and so on in reforming our town school district. So as you probably recall, a couple of weeks ago now, we had a town vote, elected a 3-person school board to begin representing the town. That includes Cheryl Charles, who is also on the Unified Town School District, Charlie Hutchinson, and myself. And then on August 31, we're going to be asking the townspeople to expand that, to approve the expansion of that board to 5 people and have the elections for those people happen at town meeting as usual. And in March, that is, or late February. And we also are, at that point, there will be a financial agreement with the Unified District on how the separation will occur. So we'll ask the town voters to approve that unified agreement. Really, the only thing about that is that the town will need to agree to take back its debt for building a gymnasium some years ago. When, as a unified district, Athens and Grafton, as well as Westminster, were having to be responsible for that debt. We'll have to take what remains of that debt back. And we don't have to if the voters don't agree, but that's what we're asking the voters to do. But because Cheryl Charles became a town board member, she can no longer act as a board member in the Unified Board. Unified Board really will just be, in short order, just be Athens and Grafton. But in the meantime, we need to appoint someone from Westminster to finish serving her term until next July 1. Elise Manning has consented to be appointed. The lawyers say that there is no law that defines who does the appointing. And so the lawyer suggested that you folks, the select board, endorse, have a motion to endorse Elise Manning as a unified school board member from Westminster, and the remaining unified school board members will also, I think, tomorrow night have a similar motion. And
they would also have to accept the resignation of
Cheryl. Accept the resignation of Cheryl Charles.
I move that we appoint Elise Manning to take the side on
the unified
on the board.
Second.
Motion to appoint Elise Manning, a replacement for the Unified School Board, has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion
So
passes.
then we do need another one to accept the resignation, correct?
She hasn't resigned yet.
I don't think you need to do that.
Okay.
She can resign. She's planning to resign as of tomorrow night, and she can do that on her
Thank you
permission.
for all you do, too,
Yeah.
and all you've done. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on. McKinnon Road, land purchase from town, proposal.
In your packet, you have quite a bag of information. I'm not sure the date, but the town exchanged lands to make McKinnon Road a better access for maintenance, plowing, et cetera. So the owner at the time of the land that we wanted to exchange went into an agreement, and we did so. We have now a very plowable, maintainable corner, and they got the old road bed, and they're actually using it for storage, et cetera. Worked out great. In that process, the town accumulated some extra lands, 0.16 acres, which is partially a pond and a lowlands. I've talked to Chuck. It is not usable for us. It works very well with how the road is configured now. And we have a landowner that has a very small piece of land on the inside of the corner where this land would adjoin, and they're interested in purchasing it. So the big letter, that's in very big wording, which I tried to shrink for you, but couldn't, is expressing the interest in the property, paying us, the town, $100. They would completely take care of the professional land survey, draw up the new deeds, create the Mylar, record it with the town, and to no expense to the town. Not in this agreement, the contractor slash project manager for the job also agreed to help the town in alleviating a water problem that we've had that is a substantial flow when it rains very hard that comes into the road bed, and where we don't have the room to create a better flow, they do. They own the land. They can create this swale back off of the road and keep the water off of the corner, off of McKinnon Road. So that's part of the agreement that they have proposed to you. It seems like a win-win. The liability from the pond, the lowlands that we really don't need or want, and it creates a very advantageous sluice way that we can maintain our water off of our town road.
Thank you, Russ. Discussion?
Are there any drawbacks at all, do you know?
Chuck, I don't
I
know.
think
I-
and potentially it would make this land big enough so they could build on it, so that it would add to the grand list.
It's a pre-existing lot, so it is buildable. There is some strict restrictions on it because of the size, but that's not hindering their purpose. So yes, it is. I actually gave a permit 2.5 years ago to that piece of land, and it all fits. They just kind of backed out because it really wasn't what they were after. And but this pre-existing lot is in need of this extra buffer. And like we said, we'd love to get it back on the tax roll and get rid of the liability of the pond.
I move we sell the 0.6 acres
.16.
0.16, sorry, 0.16 acres, parcel number 0140, no, that's hers, okay.
And it does not have a parcel
Doesn't have a
number, no.
For the price of $100 to Nora Daniel.
Correct.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded.
We should have had in the amendment that they were gonna pay all the other expenses. to
Yeah,
close this deal.
do you want to put that in here, or do you just want to just add, I can note it in the minutes. Do you want to put it in the motion?
Yeah, I'll revise the motion.
Thank you, Sue.
That might cost more than $100, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I move that the town sell 0.16 acres on McKinnon Road for the price of $100 to Nora Daniel, and that Nora Daniel pay the additional costs associated with surveying and the deed.
So this transaction would cost the town $0.
Right. Okay, and so,
For
yeah,
all closing costs or anything, however we
and
want
all
to put it.
closing costs.
I think the intent is we don't pay anything.
Let's wait and see what Millie comes up with.
Sorry. That's just a transaction will cost the town nothing.
Thank you for all you're doing.
Nope, I got it, that's okay, thank you. 1.6 acres McKinnon Road for $100 to Nora Daniel, and she will pay the additional cost of the survey and all closing costs, and the deed, so that the transaction will cost the town nothing.
By a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to the manager's report.
A couple brief things. Tax sale this year still has not been set, but it is going to be held mid to late August. We still have the 12 properties pending the sale. There has been no movement on any of those 12 parcels. Number two, the future bid will be going out next week. I waited because the market was in such flex. It was expressed from our present carrier that our price would be extremely high if we had done it earlier when I usually do it, which is the beginning of June. So it will be typically sent out in June, but now it's going to be next week. Number three, our trash bid will be ending July 1st. We're not going to wait and find out that people are already booked, so I'm going to send out that invitation to bid late August, early September for hopefully a 3-year contract with a carrier for our trash. And just another reminder, our audit this year is July 28th, 29th, and 30th.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you very much, sir. Boards and commissions.
We have John Jones as an adjustment to the agenda.
Oh,
Thank you. John Jones for the record. I just wanted to kind of come back to the board and the town manager and the public. And since the appointment, I've had a chance to attend a couple meetings with the Wyndham Regional Commission just as a sit-in. One of the committees that I've had an interest in, I think, as well, is the Transportation Committee. One of the things they're forward-thinking on in the fall is restructuring that committee. And I told them I'd bring it back to the select board and the town manager. They're looking for some more involvement, and they had wanted to know if our road foreman would be interested in just starting to participate in that, or our road commissioner. So I said I would bring it back. It's not going to take the place of the appointed commissioners, but they seem to have a shortfall in feedback from towns on transportation. We're moving next cycle into bridges, Bretton Fall, a lot of the bridge work. So if that's an interest to the foreman and
Chuck?
commissioner.
Well, it's more clear. One more thing.
I think it's a good way.
You don't need to sleep.
He's got a raise.
I think it's a professional way for our community to have another voice there, someone that's out there every day working our roads and say, this is what I see. We're not always going to go and forecast that as representatives. And you folks are busy with your professional careers and talent. So that's just feedback, and I said I'd bring it. And I brought it.
Terrific.
Never been called that.
Thank you. So you'll be in contact with Chuck.
Yep, I'll let him know when the next public meeting is. The
Terrific.
same way we're all doing it right now, it's still be in.
Jason and I are still looking at, what's a professional job?
I'm just trying to be professional.
I've been called worse. I'm good with it.
Thank you very much for that. Boards and commissions, anything else?
I have nothing else.
Any other business?
Can I just, you go first.
No, go ahead.
I don't know how this fits in, maybe David can tell us more. It's pretty well-known fact, I think, that all special ed kids are being moved to Westminster Elementary School. No?
Not that I've heard, but
I think a lot of the district special education kids are going to be moved to the Westminster School this fall. And I'm just wondering how that impacts. Maybe it doesn't impact the school, or maybe it's all reimbursable? You're shaking your head so you know, I guess. I know because.
We have the expert.
I'm not the expert in that matter, but there has been a special room or area in the center school that has housed not only kids in Westminster kids, but also other kids from the supervisory union who have extra needs. It's not all kids from the supervisory union,
I think there's a choice if people know enough. It seems like there's a choice if you know enough to ask the district that if your child not be moved. But I know if you don't know that, your child could be moved and bused.
Yeah, and I, because I have, the information I have is from when I was on the school, and I haven't been on the school board during this unified district time. And what I know is that when we actually have control of our school, we will be making those decisions about whether we want to have our school open to other kids from other parts of the supervisory union.
Unified board will be making those decisions.
No, the town.
The town.
When we have when the town school district actually is in effect, which will be next July 1 and afterwards, that those decisions will be made by the town school district.
Okay. I just wondered about expense and reimbursement, and
Yeah.
that's what I was.
Yeah. So far as that
Building.
is concerned, that is currently reimbursed by through the supervisory union budget item, not a town budget or a unified school district budget.
Thank you.
Any further issues or questions?
No, I just.
Thank you very much. Okay, other business?
Two other things. You have a request from our town clerk for a.
We need a motion to go into
I
executive
move to go
session.
into executive session to discuss it.
I'll second that motion.
Motion has been moved to go into executive session. All in favor? Aye.
Can I just ask a quick question about,
Sure.
he had asked earlier about a committee for the ARPA funding, and it kind of was, we should do, do we have a plan? Like, how do people know that you're looking for people on this committee? When will this committee be formed? I don't think we can keep kicking this can down the road too far, because I want to make sure that it's a thoughtful process what we're using this money for.
Our thought process was when we receive the money, then the details will be readily available. As John's saying, that he has information that I haven't received yet. So I don't think ready to form a committee, but I think immediately, as soon as we see it, could be as soon as next meeting, it will be on the agenda. But I've been checking daily, and I haven't seen any more.
Hey, Russ, can we write maybe a little article in the Gazette to to just say that there's a possibility, so if you're interested in being on this
Absolutely.
committee, you could call so that we would have names of people who would be interested.
Deadline is next week, that's perfect timing.
Okay, so that they would know, then we,
Yeah, I think that, I think there's enough guidance out there
Yeah.
right now to get the discussion started.
if 6, 7 people call and say, we don't know, but we'd be interested in serving on it, at least it helps the board that when we go to form, we already have names of people who are interested in doing it.
Yes?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I forgot one thing under board
Go ahead.
commissions. Speaking of committees, there is a plan on the Energy Committee for Wyndham Regional, and in there outlines for towns to establish an energy committee. I will, once I can print that off, I'll bring it to you folks, and that was one of the other committees I signed up to participate in. So just so you have all that information. It's just,
Thank you.
It's something they had, so I apologize for
No,
not squeezing
quite
that
all
in
right.
on that note.
Thank you for all you're doing. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Be safe traveling.
Will there be any decisions coming out of executive session?
Yes.
I still have one thing on other business. I mean.
I did hear you say 2.
Go ahead.
You did say 2.
The next matter?
We have still a tax rate that has to be
yes.
approved by you, and I don't have enough information right now to be comfortable to help set the tax rate. So I'm hoping tomorrow with NIMRIC to justify the decrease in our grand list that our assessor is showing. I just want to make sure that it's correct. It just doesn't feel right. We've increased the town's values substantially this year with permits and et cetera, and carryover from last year, and we're still showing a significant decrease in overall assessed value. And I guess what put me over the top was we lost 14 taxable homestead parcels. We went from 895 to 881 in a year. And I know of one fire that could possibly have been that. So anyway, I'm not comfortable yet, so
Did we
you
give
will
up
have
some
to,
to the
I will,
state or something?
I'm sorry?
Did we give up some to the state?
No. The state has had some fluctuations, but nothing that would adjust to this point.
So you will work with
Chris Mealy or
Yeah.
Meal?
Chris,
Mealy,
and then we will call a special meeting, correct?
yes.
And you'll let
Monday
us
or
know when, you guys will
Monday or
let us know when you're
Tuesday
ready,
of next week.
okay?
Can I just say, are there parcels that were surveyed together? Was there transfers of parcels that might be contiguous, that one became inactive and the other one?
We had one annexed parcel, we had one burn.
The burnt parcel, there's still a parcel there though.
But it could have changed from a homestead to land, and that would take it off of that item, is what I was told. So those are the only two that I can justify out of the 14 that.
You came to us this last year with maybe 4 or 5 different parcels that we had to make corrections and move, but you haven't come with us.
That's errors and omissions,
Right.
Yeah.
honestly, that's just in value of.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there was
some
nothing
bits here and there.
that we made.
But again, it doesn't even come close to what we've lost in.
The whole time you were kept
list
saying that
value.
you thought the list would go up.
Yeah.
Forgive me,
Yeah.
board, availability for the special meeting would be Monday and/or Tuesday, you believe?
I surveyed everybody.
Okay.
Toby can't make either one Monday or Tuesday, but I will let you know as soon as I know.
Do we have a
Which
quorum?
hopefully it's tomorrow, yes. So the
Okay.
4 of you are available.
Thank you.
And you got everything
Sorry,
for the
that's it.
school that you need?
I'm sorry?
You got all the information?
Unfortunately, yes, I do. I don't know, significantly.
Do you need me to stay? Yeah.
There's a decision.
No.